Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Silicon Zeros. We are, I think, we're almost done with this high-speed board here, right? We haven't skipped anything along the way like we did for Multiply. We've got Delay CPU coming up next. So, we could always do another little, aside, but, I keep thinking that button is going to take me back to the main thing, and it never does. Alright, let's try Delay CPU, see what this is all about. This is it. If you can build a full, fast CPU, buyers will be beaten down our door, Zerocom stock will go sky high, and we'll all be rich as King Midas. It's all on you, Dana. Execute all instructions quickly. Let's finish it. So we have 23 ticks per cycle, plus 2 cycles of buffer. That 2 cycles of buffer, actually, I think is what got me in the last one. I was like, oh, obviously I want to build a 3-stage thing, and I built it, and then, like, it didn't work. And it was simple enough to remove the extra stage, but, I assume it's, like, I don't know. I don't know why you would need 2 in that previous one. Weird. Okay. So what's the deal here? We have set R, add R, and save. And that's it. So I assume, let's run a test here. Yeah, it doesn't work. I was just trying to get you to bring me back to the first test a little more quickly. But it didn't. Oh well, whatever. So we already have something that does set R, add R, and save, right? But the problem with it is that it's a bit too slow, because it was built before we had, like, we have this, right? Set R, add R, and save. But it was built before we knew about instruction pipelines to do with milliticks. So let's just put this down. And, right, it's 34. That's too slow. So hopefully we can just add another register somewhere that will simplify things. The most obvious place is at the end of the instruction decoder, right? Let's just grab all this stuff and scoot it over a bit to make room. Interestingly, these get color-coded because they're coming out of the instruction decoder, which is cool, but isn't an obvious thing that you often do with an instruction decoder, like putting a register in front of it, in which case I suspect you would lose the effect of these colored wires? Like, it seems a little... Like, if I take this register and put it here, and then I say send a thing out like this, for example, I'll just send it somewhere nonsense, like, I don't know, here. It doesn't come out the same color. So, I don't know. It's a cute thing, but it doesn't seem like it actually works. I don't know. So let's just give this... Yeah, after decoding the instruction, we never need any of the stuff from back here. We just need this. So, if we can give this 4 registers, and this is currently going to here, so instead we'll send this to... This is going to there, so we'll take this and put it here. Where's this going? It's going there, so we'll... Boop. How about this? Is it going to one place or 2? Just one. It goes up there. Okay, well, let's put this up here. And this, it's going to here. Ah, but there are a couple other things, right? Oh no, we did... Wait. Yeah. So this wire is also going to here. We need to cut that. And this wire is also going to here. And, like, I think that ought to do it, right? we're down to 19 ticks suddenly, and we haven't changed, as far as I can think of, correctness at all. We're still doing all of the operations on memory, except for the one about reading the current instruction in a single tick. So it should be fine. One thing that would make me happier is if we slid this whole thing down just a touch so that this lines up rather than having the weird wire coming out of it. Right, so I mean, like, is this it? Do the thing? At the end of the first tick, what's happened? We've saved the current instruction here. We're going to start decoding the next one while we execute this one. And as a result, we would like to save a 48 here. Yeah, this seems fine. Just go. Why is it not playing sound effects like it was before? I feel like there were a lot more sound effects in the last episode. We got an achievement, by the way. I don't think you guys can see it, but it says achievement wealth. It's done, says Carol. The end. And we did it ideally. Defying all odds and even common sense, we'd pulled it off. The fast CPU was done, Zerocom was saved, Escotech was toast. And Jack? Last I heard, he was on the run from 5 different lawsuits. Zerocom led a new industry, and our chips were sold around the world. Our stock paid off big time, made my paycheck look like spare change. So I gave notice, taught my understudy Sam everything I could, and left. The story of Sam's time at Zerocom is worth telling too. But if you want to stop, this is as good a place as any. Aha. So, there's more advanced puzzles here. Okay, cool. Interesting. And we still have the asides to work on whenever we feel like it. But the music has stopped. Right? A minute ago, the sound stopped, and now the music has stopped. Now, back on the main menu, yeah, I have sound and music, but here it's gone. I hear something here. Maybe they're just... Huh. Hear a little buzzing. Weird. Okay, let's load up an aside here. See what's going on with this MicroCPU. We have music here. I don't know why there's just no music on that puzzle select screen, apparently. Alright. MicroCPU. Got something interesting from China. Actually, you know what? Let's try something with 3 stars. We did that last one pretty quickly. Let's look at Negate. Been looking for a way to simplify. Replace each non-zero slot in memory with 1. Carol liked the idea, but said it'll be months until she has time for a new module type. Let's see if I can beat her to it. Okay, each non-zero slot with 1. So what do I have access to? All the numerics I would like. Read, write, and latch. So it seems like all we need to do... Wait a minute. I don't have an output selector or an input selector or something, which is what I would like to do this. Each non-zero memory slot. So what this means is we want to write over these 4 but not this one, right? Yeah. So it seems like the obvious thing to do is have an equal to 1 check, right? Or an equal to 0 check? That's not quite right. What I want is, so if it's equal to 0, we'll get out a 1. And otherwise we'll get out a 0, which is the opposite of what we want. But we can subtract that from 1 and get the right answer, yes? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Here's our instruction counter. We don't have to worry about milliticks or anything. We already have a 1, how convenient. Put a reader here. And I need a comparator to the number 0, like so. And a subtractor, where is that, E? Subtract that from 1, and then we get out the value we wanted. If it was 0, we'll get out a 0. No. If the input was non-zero, then this compare will be 0. And then we subtract that from 1 and get 1. So I think this is about right. And then we'll just put a writer here to this memory slot, and I think we should be good, right? Yep, there we go. Write a bunch of 1s, and then write a 0. Good. One less thing to worry about. Less for Carol to worry about, too. Incredible how busy she keeps herself. I'm in here working every other night, but she's still here when I leave and when I come back in the morning. Plus weekends. Love this job, but someday I want to have a life outside it. Not sure she'd agree. So yeah, that was pretty simple. 3 stars I feel like is a big overbid. Like, there was the one puzzle that I had a lot of trouble, I think, with Flip. Was one that took me a lot longer than I expected. I mentioned this in the video, and Pleasing Fungus is watching these videos before I publish them, and remarked that he changed the difficulty from 3 to 2 after one tester said it was too easy. So, you know, just goes to show you never can win as a game designer. I thought this was quite easy, but, you know, not everyone would agree, I suppose. Let's look at faux reg, then, while we're here. I've been thinking about a little toy, a machine that reads the numbers stored in memory slots 0 to 3, and then writes them to the slots specified by memory slots 4 to 7. I've got no plans tonight, so time to build. Okay. So what do we have access to? We have the arithmetic stuff we would want. We have any number of writers, but no other readers. Ew, nasty. Okay. So... if we wanted to do this all at once, like read 4 values and then write them all out through 4 writers, that would be possible. But I don't think necessary. I think that what we can do is just read from slot 0 and have something that's like an adder by 4, basically, that determines the slot to write to. Yeah, I think that's the idea. So let's grab this guy, and as usual, put our reader on it. Hang on. I only have 1 reader, and I need to read memory twice for each write that I want to do. Sneaky. Okay. That's a little tougher. So, the obvious way to do this is the way that I tried to do basic CPU the first time, I think, of having a 2-step instruction pipeline sort of thing, where in the first tick we read the source instruction, and we have an alternator saying where we are in the process. Are we in stage where we read the original instruction or where we dereference? And then use that alternator to feed an input selector to decide what to write to this, and also an input selector, I think, to decide whether to write this value to something or not. And likewise, we'll need to use that alternator to decide whether to increase this this latch or not. I don't see any other real way to read two values in a single tick with only a single reader. Which I think we have to do, right? I can store it to a register, but that doesn't help. There's still only one value being read at a time. Actually, hang on. Maybe it is fine. No. I have to, in the first step, save it to a register. And then in the second step, use the reader to read from what was in the register, right? So that there has to be a tick in between those two things. You can't just wire the reader up to itself, right? I mean, if you do this, you're going to be very sad. So, I think I need something a little more complicated than this. So we have an alternator that we built a while ago. Although, I think we can maybe make it a bit simpler. This one has to go to both of these places. And, so having done that, we want to take this and make it the source of ones for our latch. Right. So that this only increases every 2 clock cycles. Then we need... I don't have a comparator. Ah, but I don't need one. I need an input selector. Right. Grabbing this, I suppose, as our control signal. The same thing that's feeding this. If it's input 0, then the input... so the output is what thing are we reading, right? That's the first thing we need to know about. We'll do that, I guess. If it's 0, then we should read from this. And if it's 1, we should read from this. Okay, great. Now we've read the appropriate thing. And... wait, hang on. That doesn't work, does it? No, that's going to create a loop, of course. We need to have this guy... send his output either to a register or to an adder, basically, right? So this input selector, or output selector, needs to be driven by the same phase shifter thingy. Is there, like, what's the time limit on this? 15 to read 7 things. 8 things. Uh-oh. That's gonna take me 16 at this stage, isn't it? Oh, no, wait. Do we actually have 8 things? How many things do we have? We only have 4 things. Memory slots 0 to 3, write them to slots 4 through 7. Okay. So we only have to do 4 inputs in 15 ticks, which means we can afford 3 ticks per thing, and I think I only need 2. Okay, so great, fine. Now, we only need one thing in this register, because it just has to store the value, the memory address to look at next. So in the case of 0, we're storing it here. I'd kind of rather be a little further apart so that this wire is not so confusing. Otherwise, we need an adder fed by both this and this. The old value... Wait, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. Get out of here, adder. What? Okay. I'm not adding together the previous values or something dumb like that. So first of all, we have to decide what are we reading from in the adder goes over here. In the case that this value is 1, we want the output here to be the number 4 plus this latch. No. Shit. Okay. We do want an adder plus 4. We just want it fed by something else. So, like, snip out these wires, please. 4 plus this is the address we should write to. Okay. Writers are on W. In fact, let's put this up here. I guess we'll put this here and this here so it looks a little nicer. Write to this address the output of this, which is what we're reading from the previous thing. Meanwhile, this is the second input to this. Yes, that looks promising to me. So let's walk through it a bit before we run it through the tester to see if to make sure we understand what's going on here. First of all, this 1 shouldn't be so deceptively close to our counter since it's not actually being used for that. We'll put it up here to make it clear that it's controlling the alternator is the word I'm looking for. So this is our alternator. We've tested it before. This value will toggle between 0 and 1. When it's 0, we light up 3 other zeros. What is the purpose of them? This one says, don't advance the counter. I agree, that's a good idea. This one says, choose input 0 as the thing to read, which is to say this latch. And finally, this one says, to send the thing that you read into a register, which is great. Now, what if it were a 1 instead? We would increase the counter. We would have as our input to this be the register, i.e. the value that we read last time. And that's the slot we would read. And finally, instead of sending that value to a register, we would send it to our writer as the value. Now, where do we write that thing? We write it to 4 plus the address that is still in our latch of the place that we read from initially. So this looks pretty good to me. I'm convinced. Let's see what the game thinks. After a single cycle, we are just wait. As part of cycle 0, we are about to write a 38 to this register and do nothing else interesting. We're about to put a 1 here, of course. Okay, that sounds good. This didn't work. Why not? Sorry, did I read the instructions wrong? I did. I think. Oh. Yeah, I did. Okay. We're doing something fairly similar, but not exactly right. What I was doing was taking the address that I read from slot 0 and saying, please write whatever you find at that address into slot 4. But that's not what I'm supposed to have done. What I'm supposed to do is take the number in 0, so take this value from this register, write it Make that be the value that is written. Right? Yes, that is the value. And the thing that we're adding 4 to is not this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. That's not very coherent. How much do we need to change? This alternator is still correct. This is still correct. It's this stuff here that needs to change. Okay, in phase 1, we're of course just reading from the current instruction. That's fine. And we're reading that value and saving it to a register. That's all great. So everything that's happening in slot 0 is correct. What needs to change is what these things read from and write to in slot in phase 1. So the numbers stored are put in the register, and those are what we write. The address to write to is computed as this plus 4, I think. No, that's not right at all. That's just not right. We do need to add 4 to this, but instead of feeding here, what we're supposed to be doing is feeding here, right? And then having done that, we send this to here? Where to write it? Yes. We read n plus 4, and then use that as the address to which to write the previous value. And that's what we're supposed to have done. Alright, let's try this again. So we're saving a 38 here, as expected. We're not writing anything. Go. Now we are writing to address 39. Good. The value 38. Good. And now in this next step, we are writing nothing to... We are writing 38 to nowhere, which is great. But we're saving a 44 for next cycle. And then we write a 44 into slot 31. And this is all going as planned. Okay. Just misunderstood the instructions, didn't read carefully enough. Fortunately, it didn't require any major re-architecting, just a little bit of rewiring. I've solved this little toy, I suppose, but I've been thinking about it, and I feel like there must be some other solutions to the problem. If I went back to the puzzle, I'm sure I could think of some more. I wonder how interesting it would be to try and beat this another way. And this is... shocking. Appalling. Right? 6? I used more than twice as many modules as I needed to. If I had more readers, I could see that. Right? Well, okay. I was about to say I could make it go many fewer ticks, but that's not what they're measuring me against, right? I could just duplicate this entire thing 4 times and have like no weighting at all, and oh, but I can't even do that because I only have 1 reader. How on earth do you do all this with 6 modules? That's amazing. And 1 reader? I feel like I just invented, like, the staged pipeline thing for basic CPU. And it's a powerful technique, but it seems like I'm over-applying it, right? I'm putting it in places where I don't need it. Like basic CPU, it turned out I could just read from the same thing multiple times. What am I missing here? That is making that I'm papering over by using a multi-stage pipeline. I don't know. But this is such a glaring inefficiency that I really would like to figure out something. Is it like based on some tool that I don't have yet? from a future puzzle? They haven't done that previously to me. This is in like a side kind of thing, and so, I don't know, maybe the tools you have on it vary. That happened in Shenzhen IO, where you could like go back and resolve earlier problems with newer parts, and like, I wasn't a huge fan of that, but okay. If that's what you want to do, fine. But I don't feel like that's how this game has acted so far. So I'm missing something fairly obvious, I think. Fairly basic. I was thinking earlier today about why basic CPU went so badly for me. And I think it's because it's important to recognize what assumptions that you're making. If you can state those out loud, I'm assuming X is true in order for this to be a good solution, right? It's a lot easier to say, oh, well, no, of course, that's not necessarily true. You know, in basic CPU, I was assuming that I need to read from this thing in 2 different ticks. And if I'd realized that was the assumption I was making, I could have said, well, can I read from it in one, twice in a single tick instead? And I would have gotten to the answer much more quickly. That's sort of like a philosophical thing, I don't know. I think it's useful when you're learning to use a new tool to try to realize how you think you understand the tool and make that explicit. And then there's at least like a list of things that you can fact check, and if one of those things is untrue, then you'll know why what you were trying to do doesn't work. So what are some assumptions that I'm making here? Assumption 1, you can only read a single value from a reader in a single tick. You can read that value multiple times, but you can only read a single value. Assumption 2, I only have one reader. That definitely looks true to me. I'm pretty sure there's only one. Assumption 3, I need an alternator for some reason? Why do I think I need an alternator? I feel like removing that would be a big step forward if I could figure out how to do it. Because we're 8 more modules than it says are necessary. And look how many the alternator is taking up. 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, this is not strictly part of the alternator, but it is part of the whole 2-phase process. It seems like if we could find a way to do this all in one tick, we would exactly converge on the ideal solution. But how could that be possible? We only have one reader. And we need to read 2 things in order to execute our instruction, right? Right? If I could plug a second reader into, say, anywhere, if I had a second reader anywhere in the program, it would be easy. But I can't have one. Which I think means I have to read on 2 separate ticks. Okay, here's another assumption. I need to know where I am in the phase of my 2 instruction, or my 2-tick instruction thingy. I'm assuming that I need explicit control based on where that is. Maybe somehow I don't? So what if I had 2 latches, 2 of these counters, one of them increasing by 2 and the other increasing by 1? Then, could I do anything with that? When they'd both read 0 at the same time, so I could add 4 to one of them and get 4. The next one would go up, it would be at 2. I don't see how that would help. Huh. Well, I guess I'll table this for now. It's interesting, but I don't have any bright ideas. I did some philosophical rambling, which I hope was interesting to you, but I think just having solved this at all is good enough for now. And so we actually, I think it was still this episode that we finished up the main puzzle, right? Yeah. We've got more stuff to do, which I do plan to get back to, but definitely not in this episode. Ugh, sorry about that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.